All right, we are tracking, so whenever you are ready.
I'm ready. Ready?
Ready, steady.
Ready, Freddy. Steady.
We can't use that. We'll get sued by Disney.
Hey, Betty. Steady, Betty. All right, ready, Freddy.
You're listening to Canary Cry Radio. Now here are your hosts, Basil and Gons.
Hey everyone, welcome to Canary Cry Radio. My name is Basil.
And I'm Gons, and thanks for joining us. This is episode number 53.
53, we're really getting up there, guys.
Rolling. And today we're going to talk to Jim Wilhelmsen. And actually it's going to be part one of 2 episodes. But before we get there...
Double header.
Woo! What we got?
Yeah, so there's Jim Wilhelmsen. But we'll do some usual stuff here before we get into that. Boom, here we go. Just a little bit of reminders for everyone listening. If you're listening on iTunes or your iPhone with the podcast app, make sure to go and give us 5 stars and a review. Well, I mean, you could give us less stars if you want, but, if you give us 5 stars, that would be really cool. And you can leave reviews and let everybody else know why you gave us the rating that you did.
Yes.
For instance, somebody here gave us 5 stars. I'm looking at it right now. And says, excellent podcast for the biblically discerned. Awesome. Excellent. To the point, 5 stars. I like it. Here's another one. This one is 5 stars. And they said, always great when they show up. Thank you.
That's actually a pretty good point.
Yeah, it does. We are great when we show up. But I kind of see that more as a challenge. Maybe I'm just a little bit
I think it is
sensitive about our
frequency,
our punctuality as of late.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. iTunes, iPhone users, go do that. Stitcher users,
thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up. That's that thing.
Absolutely.
I haven't used that, but thumbs up. Let everybody know that you approve of Canary Cry Radio. Uplayer, which in the past we have said we didn't know what it was.
Right. But now we do.
Gons, with his unlimited talent for research, has found out that it's an Android app. It's like for all you Android peeps out there.
Transhumanist, DNA upgrade, machine-loving people with brain synapses.
Right. You fell for their marketing ploy.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, the Android commercial basically says that if you get an Android phone, your DNA is upgraded and you're way more awesome.
Introducing Droid DNA by HTC. It's not an upgrade to your phone. It's an upgrade to yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not denying. I just haven't seen the scientific proof of that.
Didn't you say there's another product that has some kind of transhumanist spin?
Well, the one that always makes me laugh is 5 Gum.
5 Gum. I've never heard it before.
It's just 5. I don't know why it's called 5, but it's 5 Gum. And the commercials are like these really intense, like technological, like, I don't even know, experience-inducing brain machines. And it's just like really funky stuff happens when you chew this gum. I don't know. It's really fun.
5 Gum. Stimulate your senses.
It's fascinating that they're trying to pitch all that stuff. Anyway, go on.
Sure. Chew that gum. All right, moving on real quick. We got the forum and the comment section. Make sure to go and comment and join the forum.
Yeah.
Josh Peck, who was on our last episode, has been cruising the forum hard, answering questions, getting in the conversation. So.
Yeah, I think he pretty much wrote a book in the forum. So if you guys want to go in there and look at some of the conversations that took place, it was good. It was good, healthy debating kind of stuff going on there. So
healthy. It's like vegetables for your mind.
Yes.
So go do that. Go join. Say hello. Make sure to send us emails and comments and stuff too, because we like hearing from you guys so much.
Definitely.
Even if we don't happen to write back, we have you in our hearts and our minds.
Yeah, we should probably, and I don't know why I'm saying this while it's, we're on air, but we should probably figure out a better system to respond to people, because what's happening is there's a PHP thing that happens, and we get the message, and then when we just hit reply in our Gmail, we are writing to ourselves. So
we send messages. I don't know.
It's messy.
It's messy technology stuff. And then at the same time, there's me and Gons both looking at the messages. We don't know who's responded to what.
Yeah.
So we're super organized over here, and we would love your prayers in that field of our lives.
Absolutely.
Moving on, we have voicemails.
Oh, yeah.
Voicemails. Okay.
All right, so we have a message from GX2, and
GX2.
We actually ignored his message last time, thanks to Basil's request.
We did not ignore. We did not ignore you, GX2.
No, we didn't ignore. We just we thought it was a very strong message, so we wanted to save it for the future, and the future is now.
You're really pitching this one hard.
Oh gosh, I think I'm losing my mind over
GX2
here.
will still like us, even though he's saved his voicemail for this episode.
Yeah. So GX2, we had him in the batter's box, and now he's walking up to the plate.
Oh gosh, it just does not end with you. Okay, here we go. All right, let's listen to this.
Hey guys, this is GX2. I wanted to say I love your show. You guys are awesome. This is about the Children of Angels podcast. It was a good podcast to have her on to hear about her book and understand what it is. But it was frustrating to hear someone talk about a concept like the Nephilim as we're learning and try to twist it into a way to make it look good and benefit young kids who read that, or she may think they're going to understand, but they are going to start feeling like they want to be special like the characters in the book, and they want those special abilities just like in Harry Potter. They're going to want the same special abilities he has, and the enemy is going to show up offering them those abilities, and I believe that's going to be part of the deception that's going to lure them away. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Thanks, guys.
Yes, that is exactly the point, GX2. You hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly the point. And for those of you who don't know what's going on, go back 2 episodes and listen to our interview with Catherine Dahlstrom, the author of
Children of Angels.
Children of Angels, the first book of the Nephilim series, where the hero of the book is a young boy who has Nephilim DNA. And yes, I agree, GX2. That is the issue. It's even more so a problem in that exact context, because we're here and we realize that a whole section of the deception that we're expecting is the normalization of Nephilim or alien or something like that,
right? And
this plays right into what we see as part of the deception, which is the normalization of, humans seeking special powers through illicit means, like A, magic, or B, some sort of DNA or genetic thing.
Yeah. I mean, we've probably, at least I feel like we've, I've kicked this dead horse over and over again, but
it's totally true.
That's the whole point. And, I hope that we conveyed those sentiments without offending Catherine or anything. I think she had her heart in the right place. But, again, I think the hope is that she has a couple more books to write so she can sort of, I don't know how exactly, but maybe rectify or somehow land the story in a place where some of those things are, fixed up or whatever.
Although it might be hard to land the series with her main character going to hell or something like that. That might be difficult. Just kidding. Okay.
Or maybe he finds out that he never had angel DNA. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
There you go. God was just giving him powers or something. I don't know.
The wonderful world of fiction.
Exactly.
So there we go. Thank you, GX2, for that. And yeah, we really should have thrown that in last episode. I don't know why it didn't. Gon says that's my fault, so I'll just take the blame for that one. We got another one. Another voice message from, are we saying names right now?
I don't know.
From Andre.
Andre.
Here we go, Andre.
Yes, I really like Canary Cry Radio. I discovered it when I discovered, I believe it's Revelations Radio News. And I think you approach your subjects with a unique point of view, unique angle. And I try to, when I talk to friends and people I know, I do mention Canary Cry Radio. There is a desperate need for alternative news sources. Even entertainment sources, if you look at the corporate media. And I really like you guys, and I try to tune in as much as I can. And I hope you guys all the success. You have a listener here. And I thank you for what you're doing. And I don't even mind the religious angle, because that's pretty good. Thank you, and you have a very good day.
Boom. Yes. Andre, thank you so much for those kind words. And you know what, Gons? I respect Andre a lot.
Yeah, me too.
For so many reasons. First of all, he listens to our show, so he's a smart guy. Second of all, he's awake. You can tell he's awake. He's not asleep. Third, he tells his friends about Canary Cry Radio, which ties in with the fourth one, which it seems as though he's I don't know how to. He's a normal guy. He's not a believer. He's not a religious guy.
Right.
And so, first of all, shout out to all our non-believer listeners for hanging in there and listening to us and having an open mind and taking this all in, the truth, with, this twist that they probably don't get in a lot of their other resources.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other places to listen out there, but this guy, Andre, he made it through Revelations Radio News. He got through those guys. He's listening to us. He's leaving us voice messages. And, he's not the angry,
angry atheist.
Religious, yeah, exactly. He's not the angry atheist. So high five to you, Andre. You get a double high five from me and Gons, and keep listening.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's awesome because there's, obviously with a lot of these issues that we tackle, there is a commonality as far as it's something that is happening in our world. So, and we both, are living in this world, whether you're a believer or not. So we have that common ground where we can talk about these issues. And of course, I think we're all on a journey to find the truth. None of us are trying to say that we have the corner on the marketplace of ideas when it comes to truth. And, we have our convictions, and of course those convictions are probably offensive to people on, a normal sort of,
a lot of times.
Yeah. And
I would say the majority of the time.
But that's the thing though, the truth is exclusive by nature, so it's cool that Andre, you're listening and you're telling your friends about us and stuff. And, keep it going, man. 'Cause we don't often hear from, people that would label us with
we do,
bent.
but they're usually not very nice to us.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah.
So, all right, Andre, hope you're listening, buddy. Okay, are we moving on? What else do we have going on here?
We have a couple more.
We always have more. We'll always have more voicemails.
So stay tuned for those.
Right. Yeah. Tune in next time for some more listener contribution to the content. Don't put that in there. Do not put that in there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, maybe you can put that in there.
Okay. I'll edit it together to just make it sound completely awkward. So what you just experienced, folks, was part true, part editing magic. All right,
what's going on now?
Okay, so we mentioned at the top of the show that we split this interview we had with Jim Wilhelmsen into two. And the reason why we did that was because, first off, the conversation that we had just a few nights ago, Basil and I, with Jim Wilhelmsen was fantastic. I would say it was
so much going on.
Yeah, and it was one of those conversations where during the conversation we were both, Basil and I, were thinking, let's split this up because this is a big giant piece of pie to take in, and it would just be easier to do. I don't know why I used the pie reference, but
A big giant piece of pie, ladies and gentlemen.
I like strawberry
instead
pie.
of eating one big piece of pie, we're gonna eat 2 little pieces of pie. Yeah.
I don't know what it is with my
your turns of phrase.
Yeah, my descriptive word play.
Yeah, you're really on the ball tonight.
All right. So anyway, So we split it up, and I guess we're gonna play the interview, and we're gonna jump in with various points and sort of give our thoughts, because it's been a few days since the interview, and we had a chance to sort of reflect on some of these issues that he brought up, and so we'll provide some impromptu commentary.
Wow, you're just giving out all of our secrets away here, huh?
What? I don't think it's a secret. I mean,
it's a secret, man. They all think that we do this.
They all think that it's happening. It's happening. Well, here's the thing.
No editing.
Well, here's the magic, right? The magic is that you listening right now, to you, it's happening right now in your ear, right? But basically, we're time travelers, because we do this now, but then you listening to it, it's now for you, and so that's the kind of craziness that we get into on this episode. So yeah.
I think that was the perfect response I could have given to you. So what's going on? Are we introducing him now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, here he is. Okay. Here's our interview with Jim Wilhelmsen.
Today's guest, we have a very special guest. He was a pioneer of the first evangelical Christian motorcycle club in Detroit in the late 70s. He was a member of MUFON for 10 years as a religious researcher, and he was a resident of Roswell, New Mexico, where he owned a bookstore and a museum, providing a biblical perspective on the UFO and alien phenomenon. He's got a YouTube channel. You can find him at user Alternate Realities 7. He's also the co-founder of PAPSI. It's Paranormal and Alien Abduction Problem Solvers International. He runs echoesofenoch.com, and he's the author of the book Beyond Science Fiction. Oh, you okay there?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
It's Jim Wilhelmsen.
Thank you.
How you doing, Jim?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, let's just dive in a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to this point of your ministry.
Okay. Well, obviously from that intro, I've never done anything in the box. I've been an always outside of the box kind of guy, and I guess you might say that I fill in gaps that have never been covered before. When I first had the calling to even think or start up anything like a Christian bike ministry, I was in my early history, I was a nerd kid who later turned greaser, turned biker back in the 60s, went through the whole bike gang, living in that subculture for a short time. But I like to thank my parents, who are now both with the Lord, but they raised me better. When I got into some of the big stuff that they were involved in, actually what I saw was a murder that made me realize, hey, look, I don't mind having a chip on my shoulder. I'm a confused kid, but you know what? This is too heavy duty for me. All I want to do is ride my bike in peace and be cool. I didn't bargain for that kind of thing. So I kind of started pulling out of it. We had this little incident going on called the Vietnam War, and I was perfect age 18. And so I had to do a stint in the Army for 2 years. That kind of gave me my first wake-up call, which ultimately led me to finding Christ. But I was raised on Darwin. I was a geek. At 13, 14 years old, I was reading college textbooks on paleontology and archaeology, and didn't realize, that I was that much of a geek. I was made fun of a lot, and that's probably what turned me into getting into the motorcycle thing. Well, I happen to enjoy motorcycles, but that kind of got me into the bad crowd. And I did that thing for a while, but my lifelong fascination, at 5 years old, I was collecting newspapers of the space program because I was just fascinated by it. And I started following it and kept a newspaper collection going all the way through the entire program. I always had a fascination about UFOs too. And so I was reading and just ingesting as much as I could. About in the early 70s, it got to be more metaphysical with all kinds of, crazy new age stuff. But I was more of a nuts and bolts scientific kind of a guy, and my interest in that sort of waned, so I just got away from it for a while. And then when I became a Christian in 1974, my biggest thing was, how does that all reference into what I knew about UFOs, the reality of them? How does that fit into the Bible? Where does it happen? Well, a few years later, I got some answers. In 1978, I gave my first sermon on the whole UFO alien deception and how it relates to Genesis 6. It was kind of way ahead of most people. At that time, I think I.D.E. Thomas and Chuck Missler were just about the only ones even addressing. There was a handful more that were addressing this whole topic. I knew I was too busy pioneering one of the first evangelical Christian bike clubs, so I was too busy with that to venture more into the UFO alien thing. So I sensed, and I even told my congregation when I gave that sermon in 78, that when I heard more about abductions and the interbreeding of the human race with these things, that it would be time to get more involved. Well, that happened 20 years later. In 1996, I got a full-time calling from a dream. Well, that's how the bike ministry started. I had a dream from the Lord, showed me it before it even existed. And I go, wow, that's crazy. I never heard anything like that. That's just, of course, it wasn't embraced by the traditional church right away. The only way that we gained acceptance is there were so many people. Being a ministry, like a bike ministry, we were somewhat nomadic, mobile, so we were going around in different spots. We couldn't possibly provide, church and discipleship for everybody. So we tried to channel them through good churches that we knew were in their area. We had so many people get saved through that ministry, and we would channel them through churches. I even had this huge Baptist church, one of the biggest in the Detroit metro area. They actually came to one of my Bible studies just to see who I was, because they had so many people coming from our ministry that we referred to them. I knew, I'm full gospel, but I knew that this church had good sound doctrine and a good beginning for a lot of people. So we referred them. Well, I guess their elders, I heard the report later on. He says, you wouldn't believe this guy. He's teaching the Word of God on a college level to bikers. Some of them can't even read. And the most amazing thing is they actually understand what he's saying. Right. And that's kind of been my ministry. God's given me, he's blessed me with a pretty good brain, but I come from a simple background, blue collar working class type background. And so I'm able to take a lot of the elaborate, sophisticated, highly intellectual kinds of things and put it down into a language where the average person can actually understand it. And I guess that's the biggest gap that I fill. So I did that in the bike ministry, and being that I dealt with the biker type ministry almost right on, as soon as I got in ministry, deliverance was just simply part of ministry. And deliverance is another name for exorcisms or commanding demons out of people and homes and stuff like that. Didn't know it then, but that was all in preparation for what I would do next, was working within the UFO community to victims of abduction and other unwanted paranormal problems. I was able to convey that knowledge of deliverance into this arena because it's the same enemy, just a different outer veneer.
Right.
And, so that's kind of how in 1996, another dream, and the Lord told me that I was to stand in the gap of this. And the dream was kind of crazy. It was about a UFO. I was in an underground complex, and I'm kind of like behind some equipment and everything, and I'm hearing people talk, and I could smell a real intense smell of ozone, like electrical charged, electricity or something. So I'm hedging around these equipment to try to see what the center of attention was in this underground like cavern. And all of a sudden in the center, where I saw a bunch of technicians and other people working, there was this UFO, but it kept changing. It was flip-flopping back and forth from something that looked organic, and then it would turn into something that looked right out of the 1950s sci-fi movies, a round shiny disc.
Right. What do you mean organic?
I mean like a living being. It was shaped like a UFO, only it had like pulsating veins. It had a pattern. I've heard it described as a turtle shell pattern, which which some other people have seen. I didn't know at the time, what in the heck, here's this thing that looks alive, and it kind of looked like an SR-71 or like a manta ray, but it was actually looked more organic or live. And it changed from that to a nut and bolt, shiny, bright, metallic UFO. And it kept changing back and forth, almost like somebody had a hologram and they were changing the channel back and forth. When it became a 50s sci-fi UFO, I went inside real quick. I snuck inside. I go inside. Everything's all white. You couldn't even tell where walls were or anything. And then I heard a narrative voice in the background saying that for the last 50 years, the best technicians and scientists have been working on this mystery of the UFO, and so far nobody's been able to discover exactly what it is. Well, then I sensed a wall next to me, and I looked up, and there was this Hebrew writing on the wall. And my first reaction, I responded to the narrative voice. I said, "That's Hebrew on that wall. That means that all of this can only be explained through the scriptures in the Bible. The Bible has the answer for all of this." And then I woke up and I go, "Whoa, okay, Lord, that was really just a weird dream." I mean, I've had other things to direct me, but they were more personal, applying to my, everyday life, not, something crazy like that. So in a few months to come, the Lord started showing me that this was part of a deception, and it carried over from Genesis 6. And that I was, this is what he had for me next. The other way he spoke to me through this too, to confirm it, was I had a friend call me up. I had been working. This was a busy time of my life. I'd been working two full-time jobs. Went through a divorce. I was, trying to keep up with the front of the court and everything. So I'm working 2 full-time jobs. I had no time for much of anything else. This friend of mine, she called me up. She says, "Jim, I want you to watch this program on TV. Don't turn it off. I want you to watch it all the way through. I know you haven't watched TV in a long time, but this is a real freak show, and I just want you to see what it's like." Well, she wanted me to see the shock value of it, and so I turned it on, and here's Jerry Springer, and the topic is alien abduction. Of course, they're making fun of all the people, and, I never saw this Jerry Springer before, and oh my God, what a freak show this is. But during that show, it's what the Lord started talking to me and said, "Jim, I am calling you to stand in the gap of this. This is what you're going to do next." That very night I had the dream, and it all started, gelling together. So let's see, how did that go? I've really invested a lot of time, and I've been able to do that. I at that time I was working a job in auto prototype, making big money. I had saved up quite a lot of money in the bank. I got laid off. I had this new direction. I started fasting and praying, and I could go 10, 15 days at a time. I lived out in the country. Removed far from everything in every way. That was part of a God thing too, to keep me away from the old stuff and keep me totally focused. And I realized, okay, here I am. I'm living on the water. I love fishing. I've got lots of money in the bank. The Lord's given me a new direction. Let's just not be in a hurry to find another job, and let's just do this full time. So it was about 8 months until I had to go back to work, and I did. But for that eight months, I just studied and did a total concentration on that. A few years later, 1998, I posted my first website. I think Dave Flynn had his, L.A. Marzulli, and maybe like a handful of people were even addressing this topic at the time. My parents both had passed away. I received a bit of an inheritance. And what I did was I bought a mobile home, a modest little thing. I paid 4 years rent in advance. And wow, that's awesome. And I studied full time for 4 years. Now, in my background, I do have 2 years of Bible college, but I don't actually have a degree in it. My ministry grew so fast, so big, that I had to quit just to take care of the ministry full time. But in my early years as a Christian, I had a mentor who was going to University of Michigan. He was studying biblical ancient languages, ended up getting a PhD. He's an author of a lot of books, kind of a Walter Martin wannabe. But he taught me how to go back to the original Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic, how to use reference books and materials, how to, taught me the basic principles of Greek and Hebrew. And I got my mentorship, pretty much from him. So by the time I was into Bible college, I was getting straight A's with hardly even having to study too much because I had already gotten a good foundation from my church and from my mentor there.
Right.
If he knew what I was doing today, he'd probably write a book against me. It's just strange how everything has been interconnected. He ended up becoming, I don't know if you've ever heard of Constance Cumby.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Great book. I refer her book, Hidden Dangers Behind the Rainbow, to everybody. It should be required reading. I mean, she really puts it together with the New Age and Nazis and how they're actually one and the same. What I took as the next step further, I say, this is New Testament and Old Testament theosophy. Old Testament theosophy based on bloodline and national identity. New Testament theosophy based on the concept that man becomes God.
Right.
Just the opposite, the very spirit of Antichrist. So she wrote this book, and my mentor became her nemesis. He just dogged her and said that she was just, crazy baloney. And she's not. She has some of the best documented evidence for compiling, the research that she has. And it's an excellent book. So it's just funny how, it's a small world and there's so many other things that have gone that same way. I could just totally see God's hands in leading and guiding me through all of this. It's not like, I'm some smart guy that figured all this out on my own. Most of what I have has been through dreams and visions that I received from the Lord through time of fasting and prayer. And then my responsibility, and I thank God for a fundamentalist background that I had in my early years as a Christian, it was always pounded to me that no matter what we experience, what we hear, what we see, everything has to go back chapter, text, and verse into the Word of God. So that's kind of been my main driving rule, you might say, that just because I have a dream and I think it's from God, well, how does that line up in Scripture? Lord, show me where you're trying to show me something. Where is it in your Word? Until I see it in the Word, it's in the back of my mind, and I just keep it for consideration. But it's not written in stone until I can see it, chapter, text, and verse, rightly divided in God's Word.
Right.
So that's, so in 1996, I was called full-time into this. I took advantage of an inheritance. I studied even further. I started traveling. The more I felt comfortable with the material that I had, and I knew it was from the Lord, I started writing little booklets, and I started traveling to UFO conventions and shows all over the country and tried to get involved in firsthand witness, investigation and experiencing the whole UFO phenomena. And I have traveling all over the country for, a short period of time because I didn't want to just stay behind a computer monitor and gather up a bunch of stuff. What I discovered impacted me so much. I felt personally responsible that, for the rest of my life was changing out. Now I have to go out and I have to really find out all of this stuff firsthand. So I spent a few years doing that. And the next thing I know, I was invited to speak at the Ancient of Days in 2003. And when I went there, I had just newly gotten remarried. I was only married for like 3 months. And I went to speak. And when I came back, I knew that I was moving to Roswell. Now I gave a warning to my bride before we got married that God has got me a weird calling and I'm going to end up probably going to places that nobody else is going to want to go. You sure you want to tag along with me? Yes, I do. Okay, well, I'm coming back from Roswell trying to think how I'm going to try to explain to her that we're going to go out and move in the middle of the desert and nowhere. She's going to give up her career job and I'm going to give up my business and we don't know anybody or anything, but we're going to go out there and live. So I'm wondering, how am I going to do this? So I got back home. I said, hon, I got something I got to tell you. And she says, I know, we're moving to Roswell, aren't we? Oh, Lord, you just made it too easy. That's So we were there for 4 years. We had our little store. I'd say for every 100 people that came trucking into the International UFO Museum, maybe 1 or 2 would straggle into my store. So I wasn't dealing with big numbers, but at the end of every week, I could count on my hands 8, 10 divine appointments where I prayed with people, either brought them back to the Lord or I introduced them to Christ for the first time. And in some of those people, I had, of all things, I had 2 young Jewish people from Haifa, Israel. Because we had people coming from all over the world into Roswell. That was like the place for everything UFO and alien. And these 2 young men are looking at all of the boards I had in my store. I had poster boards beginning from Genesis to Revelation, and then some of it by topic, everything and anything supernatural. And I had books by the authors, Christian authors, or good sound reference material from secular people pertaining to the different topics and everything. So they were fascinated by the Hitler stuff, the Nazi technology and things. So they're looking through all of this, and they were there for maybe a half hour reading everything intensely. And they turned around and they said, so, now I'm thinking they're going to ask about UFOs and aliens. They said, so, tell me why Jesus is my Messiah.
Whoa.
Wow.
Now, what they had deduced on themselves, if this Hitler guy is who you say he is, and he's done all these things, my gosh, that's the opposite of what you guys always told us about Jesus. So they turned around and they said, so why is, and I laughed and I said, well, you got all day. I mean, they said, we're here and we are on no schedule. We got as long as you want to take. I said, you're serious? They said, yeah.
Wow.
So I walked them through all the scriptures, all the messianic scriptures. And then, so the one young man looked up at me and, how do you answer this? The Holy Spirit gave me a perfect answer, but in your own strength, how do you answer this? He looked at me with hurt eyes and he says, you mean to tell me that all of my relatives in the past that were Jewish that died without Jesus Christ went to hell?
Wow.
How do you answer a question like that?
Wow.
It's like, Lord, help me out, please. And instantly, instantly, I didn't even have time to think about it. I just felt so in the spirit, and I was able to say, look, all your life you felt harassed by Christians who kept coming up to you and telling you that Jesus Christ was your Messiah. I said, while you were thinking that you were being harassed, God loves you so much and your family that he was trying to get it through to you that is the most important thing for you to understand. Yes. But you know what? The thing is, that's in the past. You can't do anything about it. Now you hold the key to the future. If you understand that Jesus is your Messiah, the rest of your family that's still alive, you're their only hope. You have to take this and be bold and present it. It's the only way out for yourself or for any of your family. They accepted it. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Now they're going back to Israel, knowing that Jesus was their Messiah. How much of a ripple effect is that going to have? I don't know. I just, it was incredible. It was incredible.
So heavy.
Yeah.
It's coming from your little UFO shop and just this incredibly heavy testimony for these Israeli dudes. My goodness, that is just amazing.
Well, and, in the midst of that, the Lord says, okay, I want you to go back home now. No, right. Lord, no. Are you kidding? I haven't had it this good since I had the Christian bike ministry. I don't want to leave here. We can't. Go home. Your family needs you. Wow.
So maybe that was it.
Well, and we did. We obeyed. We came back in the midst of a very fruitful, very productive ministry. We had to leave it behind. We had to come back home.
So we're going to break in here and just sort of comment on that, moment, because it was really cool.
Can I just say how cool just that his whole story is in general? I mean, the guy dropped everything to move to Roswell and open up a UFO shop.
Yeah.
What?
That's pretty awesome. I wish I could do that.
Like, talk about obedience. My goodness.
And then it seemed like that whole experience of, moving there and having the shop and everything was for this purpose of, I guess multiple purposes, but maybe this was the main one that God had placed, in his path of speaking to these guys from Israel. And
right. Right. Yeah. He said he had evangelical or evangelistic experiences almost all the time in that UFO shop, which is just radical. But yeah, these Israeli dudes and the story he told about them was just awesome. I mean, there's just so many layers to how awesome that is.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they're out in the desert at a UFO shop, and these guys, they probably didn't plan to come learn about Jesus. They wanted to come see some aliens, man. Like, that's what they're there for. Checking out the posters on his wall, checking everything out. And then, just something happened and the Lord moved, and that's what it turned into.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of made me ponder a question about, because I've had moments where I've talked to people and in a random situation, not necessarily like a UFO shop, but I remember one time I was basically on a plane and I was sitting next to this guy, and those moments, right, where it's like you kind of start talking and
sure, you
don't know, kind of you don't intend to like evangelize or anything like that, but then the conversation sort of just goes that way. And then I remember after the whole experience, and I felt bad for the guy actually afterwards, because I was like, oh man, I totally Jesused his ear off, for like an hour. I just like totally just...
You just got Jesused.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where it was like, whoa, I didn't even realize I knew that much about the Bible and about Jesus and about all that stuff, and it was really bizarre. It was a really bizarre moment. But I don't know, do you have anything like that where you just kind of, without any intention, just sort of in a conversation or just a random person that you run into, just sort of, come up with...
Yeah, well, I mean, most of my evangelistic experiences have been in sort of overseas situations and sort of happened between translators and things like that. But I did have this one time when, you have people talk about like people just know that you have Jesus in you because you're so peaceful. And people will just see that in you, and they'll ask like, why are you so different, man? And then, that's when you're supposed to say like, cause I know Jesus,
right?
Like situations like that. And you hear a lot of dudes, like, especially a lot of preachers. I mean, I've heard this preached a few times, and I actually had an experience like that once, and it caught me totally off guard. It was in high school, and I'm just like standing in the hallway with just a bunch of hoodlums, and this one girl, I don't even know what the conversation was about, but she's like, yeah, look at Basil. He's just so peaceful. He's just like dripping peace. Like, how are you doing that, man? And, it's just like the moment of truth. Like you feel it. You're like, oh, here we go. This is it. And I just went for it. It's like, because I know Jesus, everybody. And, most of them were pretty awkward.
And then you pulled out your banjo and everything was fine.
Yeah, and then I sang my little ditty. A little bit of Rocky Mountain Breakdown.
Cool. Well, anyway, yeah, awesome.
No, but I mean, and it was just an awesome thing. And a few of those friends, as of today, are very on fire, powerful Christian people.
That's awesome, man.
Not to say that was because of me at that moment, but
No, it wasn't you. It was the banjo.
It was Jesus, Gons.
Oh, okay.
It was Jesus working through the banjo, as he so often does.
I'm sure. I really hope there's banjos in heaven. That's all I gotta say.
Didn't you read that in Scripture?
Oh yeah. Which
and the verse? Lord hath shined down his light, and the banjo descended as a dove. And Jesus grasped that banjo and plucked the holiest of holy pluckings.
All right, this is out of control. Let's go back. Let's get back
late,
to
man. That's why we do this so late at night.
I know. I'm sorry, people, ladies and gentlemen out there. We're gonna reground ourselves. We're gonna get back to the interview here, and
please.
Yeah.
I think now I've been home since 2007, back to Michigan, but I can see now, looking back, that it was needed. It was necessary. I've actually found a church that fully understands. I mean, all the freaky deaky weird stuff that I, proclaiming. I found a church that total support and totally understands my ministry. I'm going to begin teaching probably in October. A lot of the stuff that's on my videos or in my book. My pastor's checked me out. He's one of the few ministers that actually has gone back and checked out my Greek, my Hebrew. And he goes, wow. This guy's pretty right on. Crazy sounding, and he even told me that one time. He said, Jim, some of this stuff is hard to handle, and some of it's kind of crazy. But in my spirit, I know it's right. And so he tested the congregation. It's about a 300-member congregation. And he started referring people to come, to watch my videos. And he pulled me aside after church one day, and he says, I've been sending a lot of our people to watch your videos, and they're ready. They understand it, and they're ready. They need to hear more, and I want you to start teaching this.
Right.
Wow. Praise the Lord.
I never thought I'd live to see the day where that happened.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It might be, definitely the first church I've ever heard of to, include that in a Sunday service, or at least being, at the very least, telling the congregation to even check it out, you know? So that is just amazing. Wow. God bless you and that ministry. My goodness.
It's definitely a 180 to most of the stories we hear, and both Basil and myself, our personal stories of, how this kind of topic, or looking into these kinds of topics, how you get treated, or how different people look at you. And
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that's the whole reason people, listen to broadcasts like ours is, you come to Canary Cry Radio because it's a safe place to hear and talk about this stuff, because your church won't talk about it, and because they call you crazy, and because of all these things. And, my goodness, I'm just so thankful that even just to hear that, there's a congregation out there opening themselves up to your research here, and you're going to be spreading, what I think is the real message for this generation. And that is just very uplifting, and I'm obviously very enthusiastic about that. And I think everybody listening should be enthusiastic about that too, to hear that, yes, there is so many of our listeners are so down on the church nowadays for precisely that reason. And so there you go, folks. Keep praying about it, because it can happen.
Well, I've always been one to never give up on the church. We need, when I say the church, I'm not talking about a big denomination or building, but wherever the fivefold word ministry exists, whether it be in a home Bible study or whatever, we need to stay connected to people. Yeah. Unfortunately, the major denominations have been acting like frightened children on all this stuff. I went through 16 years of the same thing that I'm sure both of you have some pretty heartrending stories. I think all of us that understand the Genesis 6 paradigm have gone through this time of being made fun of, persecuted. When I was in Roswell, the biggest church there that was somewhat supportive was laughing behind my back, thinking I was, the biggest goof in the world. And, I didn't know it. Shame on them. It's here you think the capital of everything UFO and alien, you'd think that the local church would want to know what the scriptures had to say. They didn't want to know. Their major supporters were the ones that owned a lot of these stores that were making, a fortune off of the tourism there. So, it's like being in the days of the Old Testament, being a Jewish pig farmer. You're not going to be real popular, So, I was raining on everybody's parade while I was in Roswell. So I'm used to being rejected. I'm not used to being accepted. And so I keep pinching myself even, is this really real? But the thing is that it has to happen. The church has to have a wake-up call. God isn't going to just trash the church and forget them, and we're some kind of elite few chosen or anything. We some of us have been chosen or called to understand this, and we have been. And when I was in Roswell, and I'm sitting there somewhat despondent, wondering, how come I can't get any support? When you'd think that in a place like this where they deal with it 24/7, they'd want answers. Wham, 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 crying to the Lord. Why this, why that, and he kind of, this is what he told me. He says, Jim, if everybody knew what you knew about Genesis 6, things that have to happen would not happen. You would have the power to stop it. He said, Jim, the fact is the church is not going to wake up on a whole until other events have been fulfilled. I can't let everybody know. Yeah. Your job isn't to wake up the church. Your job is to prepare those. I have woke up many people that are going to be like salt and light that I'm going to scatter around, so that when it looks like the house or the roof of the church falls, they're the emergency support pillars. So they're going to keep that from falling, because they have the answers, as I've given to you. What I want you to do is encourage them, keep them encouraged, keep them connected, keep them focused and directed, and have the patience to wait upon the time when they would be called to minister. So that's why we know all this stuff, and we can use it where we can. Mostly, I hope, for people that are believing all the alien lies and headed on the wrong path. That's our focus in ministry for today. But eventually, everybody's going to have to deal with this, and when that happens, okay, I'm someone that's a little more known. Everybody's going to come running to me, but I can't be in 50 places at one time. That's where you and many others are going to be that second level of, you're going to be very busy. You're going to be explaining a lot of stuff that right now you're wondering, why do I know this? Nobody wants to hear me. I'm talking to walls and animals. There needs to be a bigger audience. Well, your day's coming. Everyone in the listening audience that's learning this stuff, that has been woken up to this, you have an important time when what you know is going to be vital. It's not right now. It's almost like junk food to most people. But eventually, sometime in history, this is going to be the most important understanding that people are going to have to know, that there are no aliens, that these things are not good. They're not here for our benefit. They are here to destroy us and to take over.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. My goodness, that's just such an awesome word. And speaking of getting the word out and having people receive the knowledge that, we have and you have, and hearing your research and things like that, you even had an interview on Coast to Coast with George Noory.
Well, that was the last time you'll ever hear me on Coast to Coast, probably. But
Oh, you think so? Huh?
Yeah, I pretty well know so. Unless God creates some kind of divine miracle, and that's not going to happen. Guy,
is that by choice or?
No. By George Noory's choice, I suppose, but not mine. First break, he had his. One of his producer, he cut in and he says, okay, now, Mr. Wilhelmsen, you're way too biblical for this program, so you're going to have to tone it down. Now, they called me at the last moment and wanted me to come on the show. I think they had a cancellation, and out of desperation, I was on the list or something. So they called me and I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to do it. And but they called me knowing that I was a ordained minister, that I was going to be presenting everything from a biblical perspective. And yet they're telling me I'm way too scriptural. and everybody, he's George Noory. Oh my gosh, bow down. Yes, Mr. Noory, whatever you say. And, and I wasn't being disrespectful, but the thing is, my reply to them was, look, you called me. I didn't call you. I'm a minister. Now, how am I going to be able to speak with any kind of authority, being that the scriptures are the only basis of my authority?
Right.
How am I going to be able to intelligently answer your questions without referring to chapter, text, and verse in the scriptures? I said, that's, I'm not being preachy. I'm not demanding anybody to make a moral decision. I'm using the Bible as a as a historical narrative, and then comparing with logic, science, history, archaeology, and current events. Now, if somebody uses the Bhagavad Gita, why is that any different from the Bible? Let me explain that to your audience, and there shouldn't be any problem. Well, they let me stay on the whole 3 hours, but when we were all done with the interview, there wasn't any, well, thank you, Mr. Wilhelmsen, I'll come back someday, blah, blah, blah. It's click.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I listened to that Coast to Coast thing today, and it's making a lot of sense what you're saying. And just for myself, I want to hear how that was, because I did notice that there was no goodbye, there was nothing. They just sort of came back from a break and went on to this other thing, and you were just gone. And I'm like, what happened to this? Like, what just happened? And it was bizarre.
That's what I thought too. Now, there was a Christian woman who worked in the office, and this was that was done in September, and she was nice enough to write me, and she said, I really want to thank you for being on the show. I just thought you should know that you've had more phone calls over your radio program than anyone so far this year. And it was September, so that was 9 months, so that was pretty good. But a true biblical perspective is not desired or wanted by the secular world. I was a member of MUFON for 10 years, never got to speak anywhere, anytime, any place. I was window dressing, so they could say, see, we even include the clergy. Now, right. I happen to know from working on the inside there that the clergy that they do have that allow would be allowed to speak are people that I would determine scripturally by fruit as being apostate. They are in total harmony with the alien agenda and are not aware of what the scriptures have to say and probably wouldn't care anyway.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because while I was listening to it, and you're throwing out scripture where it needs to be thrown out, and it occurred to me, I'm like, wow, this is like the most scripturally, biblically based thing I've ever heard on Coast to Coast. And, it was awesome. I mean, it kind of felt like a Canary Cry Radio broadcast. And I'm like, this is really new. This is awesome. And, a lot of people kind of see George Norrie as a very Christian influenced guy. But yeah, you could kind of see throughout the interview, he kind of got like a little bit more like a little bit more hostile, like a little bit more trying to like get away from the subject of the Bible. And then you kind of would come in like, hey, this is just me. I mean, I'm using it, the Bible is a historically relevant, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, okay, well, okay,
Yeah.
And I could tell that during the breaks or something, like something was going on that wasn't coming through. And so, yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And then on top of that, they don't even give you a farewell. They go to break and come back and they do a broadcast, talking to the guys up in the International Space Station, which I think was it was just kind of a canned piece there that they just played to take up time. It seemed like something that they just have in their back pocket to, take up time when they got to cut the Bible guy off.
Well, they did have him scheduled, and so they went right over to him right at the time when they said that I would, that I was going to be over. But I thought there was going to be a thank you or something, and there was nothing. And I'm going, well, okay, that's the last time I'll ever be on. But I had a decision to make at first break, and they went to break first. And before they said anything to me, there was a little bit of quiet time there. So I'm saying, Lord, I don't know how I'm doing here, but you got to guide me. Tell me if I need to change it or anything. And that's when they came on and said that. And it's like, it occurred to me now, I've had other friends who are Christians that went on that program. L.A. Marzulli's one of them, and Dave Flynn, when he was still alive.
Right.
And, but I know that, they are pretty good at toning things down when they feel they need to.
Yeah,
and
they're a little more cryptic with their language, especially LA is good with that.
And he's very good at it, and nobody's, it's not like he's wrong and I'm right. We have our individual callings. We have our individual ways to do things. I'm a double barrel shotgun type of guy. And that's just the way I'm supposed to be. I don't know any of my other colleagues that even would think about talking about time travel in the Bible, because it would, I think they would be afraid that it's too freaky, but too freaky is what I'm used to. Somebody's got to be a point man. Somebody's got to spit it out, and then everybody else will eventually mull it over and maybe do more research. But if you're afraid to say anything, then, we're not going to progress it, any more forward. So I don't mind being a point man. So when they told me to tone it down, I thought, well, look, I could be like the rest of my friends, just kind of, I can play that game. Maybe I'm not as good at it, but I can do it if I wanted to. I thought, for the first time in my life, I've got over, a couple million audience all at one time, one day, one shot. Why don't I just go ahead and blast it and give all the scriptures? And I'm really actually pretty good at preaching without people realizing that they're being preached to. Once I listen to them and know where they're coming from, and then make it more relatable to them. So I thought, you know what, stay on target. That's who you are. That's what you've been called to do. So let's preach the gospel one time, and if we never come back, that's okay.
Right.
But you don't think of this vastness of space, that there's got to be some creatures out there like us?
For me. Now, I'm only saying for me, and not.
I understand.
Trying to make everybody else believe the way I do.
Well, you're on for your views. You're not on for other people.
I don't believe that aliens came down here and enhanced their DNA and made us, mining servants.
Well, would you believe that even if they were created by God?
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. Yeah, because there was even a point there during the interview where he's like, well, now don't preach to me here. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, if it would have been Art Bell, he would have disconnected me a long time ago, because Art Bell's even more intolerant. But, right. I thought, that's what's funny is George Nori grew up only 3 miles away from me. We're the same age.
Yeah, at the beginning it seemed like you guys connected on that level, and then
right, yeah,
and then it was
what people don't know, he is a Mason, so that kind of does it right. Oh yeah, so that does it right there.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, wow. You don't get into those kind of positions without being part of the good old buddy system. Even L.A. Marzulli, he was been on Ancient Aliens program about 2 or 3 times. Finally, he got so fed up because they edited out everything that he says, you know what, I'm not helping you guys. You keep editing me out. You keep making it look like I'm on your agenda, and I'm not. So I'm not doing anything with you anymore. That's it. And good for him. Good for him. Wow. He had and I really respect that, because he depends on his ministry as a business, and that's hard to do. Me, I'm retired on SSD. I get my checks that I've worked 40 years, mostly 2 jobs most of my life to have. So I don't have to answer to anybody except God. So I can say whatever I want. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to actually even ask you, like, what your thought was on George Nori and Christianity, and because he comes across pretty cryptically Christian. Like, I don't know, like if you're not expecting him to be spiritual, and you just kind of hear some of the ways he comes across, you'd be like, oh, this guy's probably a Christian, but he's on this UFO radio thing, so he only kind of puts it in there once or twice. But to hear that he's a Mason, I mean, just explains everything.
Well, the thing is that he may in his own mind think that he is a Christian. I just don't think that he understands the idea of being born again and having a relationship, as opposed to, embracing intellectually a religion.
Right.
And he has a religion, so he doesn't get an evangelical that, comes from a born again type of position. And in the secular UFO community, true born again Christians, with an evangelical biblical perspective, very knowledgeable in the word, they're not accepted. They're not given any opportunity to speak unless you hop on the agenda. That their litmus, I guess you might say, is could you be open for the idea that there's good aliens? I'm not. I'm sorry. I was asked to be on the one History Channel program, The Bible and UFOs, and they almost demanded that I have to accept the idea that there are good aliens. And I said, look, I'm a Christian. I can show you in 3 scriptures that there are no aliens anywhere at any time, any place, period.
Right.
Well, shoot yourself in the foot. I mean, that does it right there. You're not invited to be anything in the secular UFO committee. I lived in Roswell for 4 years. And when I was there, that's kind of the central hub, the mecca for all things UFO and alien.
Right.
I got to pretty much meet, at that time, I was from 2003 to 2007, I got to pretty much meet everybody that's who's who in the secular and the Christian realm of UFO investigation. Although I have to say, from 2007 till now, there's been so many more Christians exponentially getting involved in this that it's just, I can't keep up. I don't know half of anybody anymore. But I gave my first sermon on Genesis 6 and how that overlaps to the whole UFO alien thing in 1978. So that was kind of way ahead of the program.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, you sound like the perfect guest for this show, because there are a lot of people talking about it more. But, I mean, my personal testimony involves finding someone like yourself through the internet, through like interviews. And I remember listening to that Coast to Coast interview fairly early on. I've been a Christian for like 6 years, and it was probably within the first couple years where, I mean, I almost fell away because I was like trying to figure out what the whole UFO thing had to do with the Bible. And there was nobody talking about it, so that's part of my testimony. So yeah, I mean, you were one of those people I found. Steve Quayle, L.A. Marzulli, Mike Heiser and stuff. So yeah, you were a big part of making sure that I stay saved, if you will. I mean, I don't know if, I guess that doctrine is another whole thing there, but But yeah, well, I appreciated your work, and so it's an honor to have you on here.
Wow, that's nice to know. Yeah. Thank you. There really needs to be discernment in this area. I tried, and it kind of failed. But see, when I got called into this full time, I was already an ordained minister for 20 some years. Many people get into this, and they have never been prepared. They've never been in ministry as any kind of leadership capacity. My God, I know, and I'm not going to mention names, but I know a woman who was in a mental institution while she wrote most of her book. And she got out, got saved. 8 months later, she's got her book published. A genius, actually, intellectually, absolutely not prepared for ministry, didn't even have a basic discipleship program. And now she's spouting off on a level of a PhD level. I mean, that's just insane. I tried to talk to her and tell her, wait, learn at the feet of Jesus first. Get your basics in. Don't try to handle, all these heavy topics right away. You need to learn who Jesus is. Allow the Lord to prepare you for ministry. You just don't throw yourself into ministry. Right. There's no check and balance in this kind of activity because the church has thrown all of us out.
Yeah.
So there's no way to have check and balance. So that the people that are listeners or hearers to anybody talking on this kind of subject really have to use prayerful discernment, because there's a lot of people that are ill-equipped and ill-prepared, and they end up getting way off on tangents. There's 2 websites, Sherry Shriner and the Star Gods. Just, when they first started out, they had some good basic material. Now they're on this kick that Paul was a false apostle and everything that Paul wrote we need to throw out, which I guess we got 3 books in the New Testament then or something. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really takes discernment, and I'm one that I don't believe that as Christians we have any right or scriptural basis for airing dirty laundry or attacking each other publicly. If we have a problem, we need to be doing this privately behind the scenes, not displaying this out in front of the whole unsaved population. The idea is that they're going to know we're Christians by our love for one another. While we're sitting there beating each other up with doctrinal disputes, how is that showing anybody anything?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. I know all too well about that with some recent stuff, finding myself on some articles and people calling me, different things in YouTube videos and stuff.
Mean names.
Mean people.
Names.
That claim to be Christians, but
well, the thing is, like, even we have a chat room for fellowship and support. It's 2 ways. I work with a lot of victims of unwanted paranormal problems and things, and I have no church to turn them over to. Matter of fact, I warn the people, don't say too much about your abduction or the experience with orbs or whatever they went through, because they're going to want to send you to a psychiatrist, even in a full gospel church. So. What you might want to do is just, we opened up a room so that we could provide fellowship, basic discipleship. And even then, under the anonymity of the internet, we have people coming in there like trolls, just trying to argue and fight and bash. And it's like their alter ego. They'll say and do things that they would never have the guts to do in a live situation. So they hide in their anonymity and act like beasts. So we kick out half the people that come in because we just don't put up with that. It's a place for fellowship and encouraging each other, not for beating each other up.
Absolutely. Those darn trolls. Cons, you have a lot of experience with those trolls, don't you?
I do, unfortunately.
Just those internet people trying to make you mad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've fallen victim to being reeled into the conversation, you realize they're trolls, but then you're like, my wife is like, hey, come cook dinner. And I'm like, wait, you must
somebody
wait.
On the internet is wrong.
This person on the interwebs is wrong. And I must type my truth-filled response.
Okay. So just so everybody is aware, and this might be equipping some of you with some internet savvy that you are so desperately needing. But who knows? What do I know? You might all be more cool than I am. So a troll on the internet, they love Christians and they love people who really believe in anything.
Yeah, who have convictions.
If you have
about
any
anything.
sort of belief, they'll come get you. But what these people do is they'll just post things just specifically to make you angry and to evoke a response out of you.
Right.
Doesn't really matter. I mean, sometimes it'll be so ridiculous and you're like, what? That person is ridiculous. Jesus was not a raptor. He was not a velociraptor. And then, you take the time to research and write out all the scriptures that specifically say that Jesus was not a velociraptor. And then once you have laid out a very clear and poignant argument, they come back with just more ridiculousness because they don't care. They just want to make you angry.
Right. What's interesting though is that we've come to learn that there's actually paid internet trolls. People have admitted.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? I thought you'd know that.
I don't believe you. What are your sources? Who's paying these people?
This might be old news to some, but last year it was confirmed that the U.S. military has been manipulating social media by using fake identities to influence conversations and spread pro-American propaganda. It's called Online Persona Management Services. And under the CENTCOM contract, it allows the creation of up to 10 sock puppet accounts for every U.S. serviceman or woman working on the program. The stipulations are that every fake persona must have a convincing background, history, and supporting friend networks so that it will remain undetectable from even the most sophisticated adversaries. According to The Guardian, the project has been likened by web experts to China's attempts to control and restrict free speech on the internet. And that critics are saying that it allows the U.S. military to create a false consensus in online conversations, crowd out unwelcome opinions, and smother commentaries or reports that do not correspond with its own objectives. Now, of course, according to CENTCOM, their only objective is to counter violent extremists and enemy propaganda outside of the U.S., and that it would be unlawful to address U.S. audiences with the technology. Wow, unlawful, really? Interesting. Because the newest version of the 2013 NDAA included an interesting amendment. This amendment legalized domestic propaganda on the American public. You heard me right. The newest NDAA wasn't just reauthorizing the indefinite detention of American citizens. It also allowed the U.S. government to legally carry out misinformation campaigns against the citizens of this country. But is this really surprising to anyone? I mean, the corporate media is basically a propaganda arm of the U.S. government anyways, isn't it? Why they need to legalize the use of propaganda when you already have an entire mainstream media establishment lacking to the White House, reprinting government press releases without question, selling wars, and carrying water for the administration. In fact, aside from everything I just mentioned, the Pentagon already spends $4 billion a year to influence public opinion, and the Department of Defense also spends hundreds of millions of dollars on information campaigns in countless countries occupied by the U.S. military.
Am I a troll for saying that?
I think you are.
No,
You're trolling me right now.
There are,
and just to be clear, real quick, the word troll. When you first think of it, you think of like a troll, like a little gnome.
Yeah, a little gnome with the hair. Those little,
Right.
Yeah.
A little aggravating little beast.
Yeah.
Who's like trolling you. But actually, the term comes from fishing, like trolling, fishing.
Right.
Like, that's what it is. What they're doing is they're just putting something out there and hoping you will bite.
Right.
So that's what it is. It's not the little troll. There you go.
Yeah. Well, there was some stuff on Prison Planet, which is Alex Jones's website, and some other, more conspiratorial circles that have come out and said that there are definitely some, people that are, paid internet trolls, especially pertaining to like the whole 9/11 thing. People get all riled up and they were trying
so you mean like some disinfo type stuff?
Yeah. Like or these are people that seek out, people that are very pro truther, 9/11 truther people, and all they do is they go in there so they can,
so they can start a conversation,
make them look like crazy conspiracy theorists and stuff like that,
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, okay. I mean, I know that that's their main goal. I don't know who'd be paying for that though.
Right.
Obama.
It's funny because there's a guy on Age of Deceit, the YouTube page, and right. I don't even want to say his name, but he has been there for months. Like, he's been in there for months, and like, I mean, like, at first I'm like, dude, this guy's a troll, and then I was like, maybe he's a paid troll, and now I'm just like, dude, I feel bad for you, man. Why are you in there so often, like stirring stuff up? And he's like all about Maitreya, and like
that's got to be the top stressful job on the internet. It's being a troll. I don't think we've had any trolls on our forum though, which is nice.
Other than spammy handbag
the laws
people.
of the internet, me probably even mentioning that will now just inundate it with.
Yeah, you just drew attention. All the troll eyes are now fixated on the Canary Cry Radio forum.
Come on, bring it on, trollers. Just kidding. Please don't leave us alone.
No, please don't. We will delete your account.
Well, okay. So speaking of our forum, you had a question for everybody, huh? I
did. And, Jim, in this last little segment there, Jim was really talking about, the kinds of things that I guess, the Christian community goes through as far as the alternative sort of underground, the Genesis 6 paradigm people.
Right.
So
just sort of the basis of the fringe at this point.
Yeah. And so, I thought it would be interesting to just throw this out there, and you guys can respond in the forum or the comment section. Basically, Basil and I want to know how you first reacted to the whole idea of the Nephilim, and whether, obviously there's probably, varying angles of how you came to know about Genesis 6 thing with the sons of God mating with the daughters of men and, bearing Nephilim and stuff. And so we would love to hear what you thought about it when you first heard about it, what turned you around. If you're, some of you guys might not even be convinced of it yet, but
just what's your experience when it comes to, because that's kind of a paradigm shifting piece of information. How did that happen for you guys?
Yeah. So let us know in the comment section.
Go to the comment section of this episode and let us know. Let's talk about it, yo. Because I think a lot of people who see that, will be in the same boat.
Right. And so, this will be a way for all of you guys to realize that you're not alone.
You're not. We're all in it together. I don't know the rest of the song. Let's continue with Jim Wilhelmsen. Here we go. Okay, so we have got so much to go through, and it would not be becoming of us as a program to move on without letting you talk a little bit about aliens and the UFO phenomenon and your thoughts on that in a biblical context.
Aliens. The first thing that people want to know, do you believe in aliens? Are there, is there life on other planets? And what I like to do first is divert. I know where they're going with this. And it's like, first off, I don't want to divert from the truth is whether there's life out there or not isn't the most important issue. We are being contacted by non-human entities that are real, that are here now. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Right.
Who are they and what do they want? That's the most important thing that needs to be addressed. Who are these entities and where do they come from is secondary, but what are they doing and what do they want? Are they good or are they bad? What discernment do you use? As a minister, I use the Bible. I find that they're all liars. They all preach it's funny that, if they're aliens, they come across the universe, billions of miles or whatever. And the first thing they want to get us set straight on is that we got it wrong about Jesus. They don't want to talk about Muhammad. They don't want to talk about Vishnu or Maitreya or anything. They want to talk about Jesus. We got that part wrong. And they all tell us about a cosmic Jesus that's not in the Bible. Well, my Bible says, but though we are an angel, preach any other gospel other than that which we preach, let them be accursed. And that is pretty strong language. It means let them be damned. Right. So it's like, you know what? No, they're not good guys. They're liars. They stick things up your nose, up your butt, and everything else, and that's not nice. They're not good guys.
It isn't nice. That is not nice.
That's yep.
Mean.
Well, I mean, and they stroke people's egos. They say, well, it's for a higher cause. And so, the thing is that the people end up sympathizing with their captors, thinking there's a higher cause and a reason. So it's okay to stick this thing up my butt without anesthesia. It's okay to shove this thing up in my nose without anesthesia. No, it's not. These things work in darkness. They work clandestine. If they're really the benevolent things that they're trying to come off as. They'd do this in broad daylight. They'd land on the White House lawn and they'd say, we're here and we're going to give you peace or whatever. I think that day's coming, but right now they're doing all this clandestine behind the scenes working in darkness stuff. Who works in darkness?
Right.
Not God, not his angels, not good guys. It's people that are trying to hide something. They have another agenda.
Right.
And that's the way I avoid the answer, but I don't have to avoid it. I got an answer. I can show you in 3 scriptures there are no such thing as aliens, not in the way that we're thinking of aliens.
Right.
When people in the secular world, when they're talking about life on other planets, they're saying, okay, is there life like us that is in need of some kind of, within their culture or society, that they're in need of progressing forward to a higher level of spirituality and an awareness or whatever? No, nothing like that exists anywhere. Sorry. I mean, I know that sounds pretty narrow-minded. You look up the stars, you go, gosh, there has to be more than us. But you know what? I worked in auto prototype in Detroit, and you work with new beginnings, things that never been done before. So you use the idea that everything has to have a beginning, everything has to have a starting point. So according to my Bible, Jesus said that he was the firstborn of the dead, firstborn of many brethren. The firstborn meaning that Jesus first came. He was like the prototype. He was the Lamb of God. He came. He knew no sin, but became sin for us, died, wasn't subject to death, rose again, so that he would now be the firstborn of many other people that would experience the same thing. Now the angels looked down, and says in Peter wrote in one of the gospel, or in one of his books, Peter wrote that the angels looked down and studied this whole redemptive process intensely. Now that tells me something right there. Why are they studying this? Because this has never happened before, not anywhere else in the whole universe, in all of creation. We are the firstborn of what? We are promised to be God's children, God's son, the sons of God.
Right.
We are the firstborn. So Jesus was first. We are what comes after. There has never been anything like us before. We're a new creation, a new level of creation that has never been before. So that tells me right there that whatever is out there in the universe, our physical universe, it's not going to be on par with us. It's not going to be a culture or society that is in need of hearing the gospel message or anything else. There's nothing like us anywhere else. That means whatever's out there is an angelic being that is either part of God's kingdom and will tell us everything and anything that's going to be in total harmony with the Bible, or they're liars and deceivers who are going to pretend to be aliens, ascended masters, avatars, whatever you want to hear. They're going to tell you that that's what they are. They're going to tell you something different. So it's black and white. It's literally, you're either on God's kingdom or you're against it in a massive rebellion against God and his people. So that's the scenario biblically that we're stuck in. Whether you want to believe anything else or not, that's the theology of wishology. Just because I wish it, I'm going to make it true. No, it's not going to happen.
Right.
That's what we're stuck with. Yes, we are the beginning point. What goes beyond that? I don't know. I don't think any of us know until we get into the eternal state. Then we will know, even as we are known, the Bible says. So no, there's no, friendly aliens. Casper isn't a friendly ghost. He's a demonic entity. I mean, these are some of the realities that have been made to look so narrow-minded and, like silly, mindless superstitions. It's not mindless and it's not silly superstitions. These are things that are clearly defined in the Bible if we take the time to search them out. It gives us the discernment to understand what we are encountering and who we are encountering and what's their agenda.
Right.
So there is no aliens. So what are they? Then we go to Genesis 6 and we find out that there were non-human entities that one time came upon Earth. They had sexual intercourse with the human race, with women, and they produced these hybrid offspring. They were tyrants, they were bullies, they were exchanging all kinds of forbidden knowledge with mankind, and they were corrupting the very seed line that the promised Messiah would come from. They were really trying to cut God off at the pass. If they could contaminate all the human race, then the Messiah couldn't come, humans couldn't be redeemed.
Right.
They were only 8 people away from being successful for that. And so these sons of God and their hybrid offspring are the same as the demonic entity here. We have a whole history of, of what happened to them and why. The hardest thing for most Christians to understand is the fact that angels, this is the biggest misconception. And boy, I just have to go through so many scriptures that people have misconceived. We think that angels are some kind of will-o'-the-wisp spirits.
Right.
And they're not. They're physical. They're actually very physical. Just like us. Paul said that there are bodies celestial and bodies terrestrial. One is like one thing and one is like different, but they're both physical entities.
Right.
Angels are physical entities. Demons are disembodied spirits. There's a difference between the two. We're talking apples and oranges. We're not talking one entity. And most Christians don't understand that. And that's where the biggest problem is, where they don't understand who or what aliens are. They're fallen angels. The Bible's very clear on that. But you have to go back to the original language on some texts to really understand, what's going on. I'm sorry. I get on long rants and then I realize, okay, set it up. Maybe they want to take it to a certain direction. So that's
No. It's like, don't mind me. I didn't want to interrupt.
I totally agree with you in a lot of what you said there. And I think there's plenty of scripture to show physicality of angels. And of course, Hebrews 13:2 is one of them. And some of these, you don't even have to go to the Hebrew, Hebrews 13:2 says, don't neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. So people presume that those are good angels, but it doesn't tell us that, necessarily that it was good or bad.
Exactly.
And there's other places like, for example, the two angels that in Genesis 19, in Sodom and Gomorrah, when Lot brought those two angels into the city, they all wanted to, bring them out because they wanted to know them, and so
they wanted to have sex with them.
Right. Exactly. So there's plenty of evidence there. And Jude 7 alludes to that same event. And if you actually, this one, I believe you do get into some of the Greek, with Jude 7, because I believe, it says that they were going after strange flesh, and the word strange is, heteros, and it means uncertain affinity, other or different. And if it was just talking about homosexuality, then wouldn't they use a word that's more like, hey, they were going after the same flesh, not different flesh, So there's little gems like that here and there. Have you found?
Yes. On Vine's notes on Strong's numbers includes the idea or the concept that this is altered flesh. Oh, I love that. There's a smoking gun. Yeah. But the one that I like to use the most is that we were told that as the children of Israel wandered through the desert, they were given manna.
Right.
And, it came down from heaven. And I guess, it must have been okay for a while, but they got pretty fed up with it. And they started whining and crying about, eating this manna. Well, in Psalms, David defines manna as being angel food.
Right. That's right.
Angel food. Okay. What is angels doing eating food if they're not physical?
Right.
That's right.
Interesting.
That means there's angel poo somewhere out there in an outhouse or something. The thing is, we're dealing with physical realities. People think they're going to die and go strumming on a harp on a big old fluffy cloud. Come on. They're going to be physical. Yeah. Jesus was fully physical after the resurrection. He told Thomas, put your fingers in my hands, put them on my chest where the spear went in. I'm physical. Yet he just walked through a wall.
Right.
He has the best of both. People tell me, well, okay, they were physical because they can relate to people that way. They're shapeshifters. They can change their, shapeshifters? Can you show me anywhere in the scripture, chapter, text, and verse? Where did you find that?
Right.
That angels are shapeshifters.
Yeah. It's like, okay, that's a good idea, but give me chapter, text, and verse where it says that. You can't find it. It's not there.
Right.
I can show you that in the scriptures where Peter says that the angels was kept not their first estate.
Right.
Is reserved to everlasting darkness, chains of darkness. Now we get this idea that that these spirits that committed this are chained up. Well, first off, if they're disembodied spirit, and when you go back to the Greek, they're about the angels that left their estate. It's clearly telling you that they are physical entities that are no longer physical. He had put them in everlasting chains of darkness. The darkness means a ghost, a non-tangible area, a ghost-like place. The Old Testament calls them the Rapha, the ghosts of the giants. So they're ghosts. So how do you shackle a ghost? I just want to know. I'm kind of curious. You say, you say, it's like we as Christians got everything backwards. We want to say that the things that are physical aren't, and that the things that aren't physical, they are. They're not chained up in a bottomless pit for everlasting. You look at the Greek word for chains, and there's an alternate meaning a cycle, like a chain, a cycle of going up and down. Oh, going up and down. What is that? Well, you think about the disembodied spirits, the demons. What is their whole subject? They are sentenced to go down, not to be held in restraint, but to be held for a purpose, a future prophetic purpose, is what that paradidomai means. It means they're being held in reserve. They're not escaping, but they're being held in reserve. They're locked into a cycle of going up and down. Well, what is that? Well, that's exactly what we see in the scriptures. These disembodied spirits come up because people are entertaining various occult activities. I've spent a large portion of my life kicking demonic entities out of homes and even sometimes out of people because they played with a Ouija board. A Ouija board was created by Parker Brothers. They borrowed two different occult practices and kind of made up their own thing. So it doesn't have some deep, dark, long history of occult activity. But the basic idea is this is in rebellion to the Word of God. God says to seek Him. There's only one mediator between man and God, man Christ Jesus. There's only one source, one person that is going to give you answers for your future, for anything, or give you power. But when you go to a Ouija board and ask questions, am I going to find love? Am I going to have money? We're in an act of rebellion, whether we're ignorant of it or not. And so when that happens, you actually open up a portal or allow these things to be conjured up from this pit into your life, into your home. And then in the name and authority of Jesus Christ, they're cast back down where they came from. So that's your cycle of going up and down. That is exactly what is described in the scriptures as a punishment. What I recently found in Isaiah 24th chapter was pretty incredible. It talks about the earth wobbling to and fro, and then it describes the kings from on high, or the kings of the earth and the heavenly host, were, after this earth is reeling to and fro like a drunkard, it says that he placed them, the celestial beings and the terrestrial offspring, into a pit where they would stay until they were visited. Now, this is, I get involved in one of my videos on, this is an electromagnetic forces that are keeping these demonic entities locked into this. That's their chains. That's their position. They can't escape that. They're disembodied spirits now. They're locked into some kind of an electromagnetic force, but they're going to be released. In Revelations 9, we see this invasion of something that's coming out of the inside of the earth, out upon mankind. They're coming back out. The key word is visited. Visited, the Hebrew word pechad, means to supernaturally intervene in the natural courses of events. Sarah was visited by an angel, given birth well past the ability to give birth. But it also means to muster up as an army. And we see this end-time army of locusts that are coming out of the inside of the earth, upon the earth. That is what that scripture is all about. If you ever noticed, even the British counterpart to Project Blue Book concluded in, it was called Bephoria. They concluded in their findings on researching and investigating UFOs and aliens that this whole phenomena had more to do with the occult than it had to be extraterrestrial visitations. They based it on the electromagnetic anomalies that are particular both to spiritual situations, sightings, ghosts, deliverance, things where TVs will go on and off, lights will go on and off. There seems to be some kind of electronic connection there with them as well as with UFOs. There's a similarity. They even came to the same conclusions. This is what we see in confirmation to the scriptures there. So the idea is, if you can imagine, the Bible says that the angel had a key to open up the bottomless pit. Imagine a cylindrical key or lockway. It has to have two axes. So this key is going in, and then it's shifting, and it's opening up something to allow it. Well, the earth is wobbling. It's when it's wobbling like a drunkard to and fro, it's doing an axis shift. And in that shift, it opens up a bottomless pit. It was incredible that the Bible talks about a hollow earth. It talks about openings at the poles. It's really kind of crazy, I know, but the scriptures are there for it.
Right.
So imagine a key going in from the North to South Pole. And I'm talking in a celestial sense, not a literal key, but forces, anti-gravity, magnetic forces, cosmic forces, or something that's causing the Earth to shift its axis. And when it shifts, then it's opening something else up on the other plane. Now, we have an opening in the North Pole. We have an opening in the South Pole, to a literal hollow Earth. But we have two other places that aren't lined up directly to the center of the Earth, but we have two other places that directly line up to each other, almost as if it was a bottomless pit. One is called the Devil's Triangle, and then exactly opposite, if you were to bore a hole from the Devil's Triangle, go right through the Earth, on the other side, you're going to end up in the Devil's Sea off the coast of Japan.
Right.
All kinds of things disappear, all the electromagnetic anomalies, the weird green haze that happened in the experiments with what was the USS Eldridge when they were trying to make it invisible. I mean, all of these things are all connected. I mean, I'm trying to condense, 16 years of intensive study into a 5-minute conversation. So it's hard to, so I'm just giving a review that all these things are interconnected. They're all elements of one story. So whether it be Bigfoot, crop circles, orbs or ghosts or aliens, they're all connected to one story, one theme. And when you start putting all the pieces together, it's a mind blower. That's why the name of my book is Beyond Science Fiction, because when you discover some of these truths, it's way outside of the box. It's way beyond science fiction.
It's totally beyond science fiction.
Did you like my movie voice?
That was actually pretty good.
Okay.
I think that we have a career path for Basil.
Jim Wilhelmsen. Are you talking to me? You keep cutting out whenever I talk to you.
Oh.
Are you recording right now?
I am. Yes.
You are?
Yes, it's recording.
Well, we can start that over.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to do that again so everybody wants to hire me to do their movie trailers. I guess you could just use the one I already did.
Yeah, the one you did was pretty good.
Okay. We'll just use that one. Again.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go.
Boy, this is a disaster.
Yeah.
Do you see how my job of editing this show can be sort of stressful sometimes?
Oh, I totally understand. Trust me, I'm your biggest fan.
I am not going to edit this.
I
just
more than anyone sees
of people
the hardship that you go through.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, that was the first half of the interview with Jim Wilhelmsen, and
Jim Wilhelmsen, Part 1.
Yeah, and so, oh gosh,
you put that at the beginning.
I'll put it at the beginning and the end, and the middle. It'll just play randomly throughout the thing, and then people will be like, "What is that sound? That beautiful low."
All right, how are we coming out of this?
I don't know. I thought we were already going.
I thought we were too, but now I'm just so confused. Okay, so we come out with my voice, my movie voice.
Your movie voice.
And then I say this. That's my movie trailer voice I've been working on.
Right. It's pretty good. Whoever is listening, who happens to be a movie producer, Hollywood guy, will be like, "That's the voice.
That's the voice. That's the new guy."
That's the new.
It's been the same guy forever.
Yeah, well, obviously. I mean, even if it was a different guy,
they're looking for the new guy because that guy, I'm sure, is getting old, and they're just looking for a guy who can be like,
"This summer,"
and then I don't know.
Transformers 5.
I don't know, that was a bad one, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is that they have like different voices for different like moods of movies, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of mood do you think I'd work out for?
Well, obviously the action romance.
The
best romantic comedy of the summer.
Yeah, there you go.
Jack and Jill went up that hill, but they found more than a pail of water.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely a talent of yours. You should pursue that. You should definitely pursue that, especially with all that reverb on your voice.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a natural talent of mine.
Yeah, you have natural reverb in your throat. That's just part of the way God created you. Awesome. Yeah. Well, anyway, what are we doing here? I think we're trying to wrap this episode up.
Well, we're at the end. We're at the end of part 1.
And we're wrapping it up and letting people know that we have a whole nother episode filled with more awesome stuff from Jim Wilhelmsen, including things such as the hollow
Earth theory.
And what else is there?
Well, now I feel inadequate, dude. I can't do that voice.
No, it's okay. I'll just do it. We'll say it was you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
What else is there? I don't even know what we're doing.
We got time travel.
Oh, yeah.
Time travel.
And then we also have some crazy stuff with some more crazy dealings with scripture.
Scripture.
You don't need to do that, man. I can edit that and make it.
Oh, I always forget.
It's all right. I'll leave it in there. Maybe I'll double the echo so you can't tell what's you actually echoing yourself and what's actually the real echo.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. I'm messing with your ears, people.
Okay. We got to land this plane, man.
This plane.
Snakes on that plane.
Oh, man. I actually never saw that movie. I really wish I did.
No, it's okay. You're not missing anything. Actually, you are. You should go see it. It's pretty.
I heard people saw the movie for one line.
No, I mean, that's all you watch the movie for.
Yeah. And then did people walk out when they saw that line or they heard that line?
Oh, I don't know. Are you kidding me? I didn't pay money to see that movie.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, this was part 1. We got part 2 with all kinds of craziness happening. So hopefully that episode.
And on top of that, it's already recorded, so it's not going to be like 3 weeks. It'll be out sooner.
Yeah, we'll try to get it out less than a week. So stay tuned for that. And you got anything else, Basil?
No, I think that's all we got, man.
Yeah, this was a doozy.
It's been a rough night.
It's definitely been rough.
This is. I guess we can just we can land this plane here, and we'll land it like this. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Canary Cry Radio. Make sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Uplayer, whatever app that you listen to us on. Even if you're going to canarycryradio.com and streaming us straight from the internet, make sure to do that. Leave us comments. Send us emails at canarycryradio.com. Great. canarycryradio@gmail.com. Leave us voicemail messages. And if you are at all touched by what you've heard tonight, maybe not even specifically on this episode, but on any other episode, please consider going to our support page on canarycryradio.com. You can support us monthly with some options we have there for you, or if you're not into commitment at this time in your life, you can make a one-time donation of any amount there. We really appreciate that. We try to do our best here for you, regardless of what you may think of this episode. And we thank you very much.
Oh, the cricket's back.
And the cricket's back, so everybody knows what that means. That means
molasses.
Oh yeah, the molasses. And also to come back next week or the week after for another episode of Canary Cry Radio. And until then, think outside the cage.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Canary Cry Radio. The show notes for this episode and many others are available at canarycryradio.com. Make sure to connect and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/canarycryradio. Follow us on Twitter at Canary Cry Radio. If you would like to share the show in video format, you can find us on YouTube by searching Canary Cry Radio. Review us on iTunes with 5 stars and give us a thumbs up on stumbleupon.com. We would like to thank those of you who have given us your support, prayers, and donations. If you would like to join us and support Canary Cry Radio financially, you could do so by visiting canarycryradio.com and clicking the support tab. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember to think outside the cage.